Hey everyone, it's me Erica and I'm finally back again. It's summertime, so I have a lot of time to read, and so I've been in the mood to film, and I have a ton of books that I've collected over the years, months that I haven't filmed my last video. So I'm here to show you like 30 plus books. So I'm just gonna get right into it. I'm gonna be honest, a lot of them I only know a teeny bit about, so you may not get the best synopsis from me, but I'll try to tell you what I know. So the first book I have to show you is P.S. I Still Love You by Jenny Han, and this is the second book to All the Boys I Loved Before, also by Jenny Han. It used to be a duology, but now it's a completed trilogy, and I've not read the first one, but the first one is about this girl. Throughout these years, she's had crushes on these boys, and instead of confessing her feelings to them, she would write letters to them and just keep them like in a box under her bed or something like that. But one day they all get mailed out, and that's where the plot kind of takes off. And it sounds really cool to me. A lot of people enjoy this trilogy, so now that I have the second one, I definitely feel like I can dive right into it. The next book I have here is a classic. It is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I've already read this book for school about like 5 years ago, and I gave it about 3 stars then, but I'd be very interested to see, especially since I've been getting into more classics and just adult books in general, how I'll feel about this. So if you don't know what this book is about, it's about this man named Gatsby, and he's in love with this girl named Daisy, but I don't think she knows. And so to draw her attention, he throws all these lavish parties and has all these guests come over at his big mansion of a house. So I am really looking forward to rereading this. The next book I have is a nonfiction book. It is The Hot Zone by Richard Preston, and this is about the Ebola virus and when it comes to America. And this book was published in 1994, and it tells you like the origins of the virus. And since it's so scary and something that we don't have a cure for yet, I think it'd be fascinating to read this, especially since I'm into science and all that stuff. I think this will be a really scary, really interesting read. The next book I have is a science fiction book called Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, and this was really popular I think last year when it came out. So this book is about this man who gets kidnapped and knocked out, and when he wakes up, his life is not his life that he once knew. His wife is not his wife. His son was never born. Kind of like, is this a dream or is this reality? Yeah. Next book I have is The Gunslinger by Stephen King, and this series has been out for a while, and I think it's completed or something like that. There's like 7 books or something around there, and this is his science fiction series, but I've never heard anything about it until I was at the movies one day and saw the trailer for this, and I thought it sounded really cool. And I know to take the movie adaptations, especially their trailers, with a grain of salt when it comes to the book. But I saw this book at Costco, and I decided, hey, the movie looks cool, so might as well read the book before you see the movie. And it's pretty short, so I definitely feel like I can get through the first one. And so, yeah. If you read this series, let me know your thoughts down below, because I'm pretty much just going into it based off of the trailer. I haven't even read the back of the book yet, so that might be a mistake. But I think the overall premise will probably be the same, and so that's what I'm going to go into this book knowing. The next book I have is Scarlet by Marissa Mayer, and this is the second book in the Lunar Chronicle series. I read Cinder not too long ago, and I'll leave my kind of book discussion link down below or in the cards thingy thing if you guys want to check that out. And I thought it was good. I liked it, but it didn't blow me away, so I heard that the series constantly gets better as the books go on, so I'm really excited to get to this one. If you don't know, this is kind of like a science fiction-y retelling of different fairy tales. Cinder, the first one, is based off of Cinderella. Scarlet, I think, is based off of Red Riding Hood. The next book I have is The School for Good and Evil by Soman Chainin. I'm not sure if I'm saying his last name right, but I actually got this at the secondhand bookstore, and it was only $5 for this beautiful hardback edition that's in pristine condition. And I didn't even know this at the time because another sticker was covering it, but it's a signed copy. I had my eye on this series for a long time. It's pretty much about these 2 girls who grow up in this kind of world where you become a certain age, you're either placed in the school for good or the school for evil. And these two girls think they're destined for their school, like, oh, I'm definitely going to school for good, and the other girl's like, I'm definitely going to school for evil. But they actually land up in the opposite school. I'm definitely interested to get to this. So the next 3 books I have for you are graphic novels, and it's the first 3 in the Saga series. It takes off following these people who are from 2 different sides of a war that is going on. A planet is fighting against the people on its moon. He's captured and she's supposed to be his guard, but they escape together, and they bring this child into this world where war is rampant and everyone's hunting them down. So it's a dangerous situation, and it pretty much kicks off right when they give birth to their child. I think it's really good so far. I'm definitely going to get the rest of them. There's 7 out right now, and I definitely plan on getting my hands on them fairly soon, especially since they're pretty quick reads, and I love the art in them. I decided to try this out as my first graphic novel series just because a lot of people on BookTube really enjoy this series, and so I thought since it was so popular that I'd give it a shot. And so this definitely opens up the doorway for me to want to try other graphic novels, so that's pretty cool. I'm glad I definitely took that step into this genre. The next book I have is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, and this book is about mental illness, and that's pretty much all I know. I've heard really good things about this book for quite a while now, and so I finally got my hands on it. The next book I have has definitely gotten a lot of attention recently, even though it's been out for quite a long time, and it is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. And this, if you don't know, follows this dystopian kind of world where fertility has become a really big issue, and so people are having trouble getting pregnant and having children, but there are these select few women who are able to produce children. So they are kind of rounded up and given to these wealthy families who are infertile so they can have children. And so she's pretty much like, they're using their bodies to make children. It's kind of follows, I think, this one girl's journey through this world, and I think it sounds really interesting, and I definitely want to get to this really soon. And it is a original series on Hulu, so I definitely want to look into that too after I read it. The next book I have is When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. I, again, probably said that wrong. This is a nonfiction kind of memoir about this neurosurgeon who finds out that he has cancer, and it kind of follows him through his life and his struggle with this cancer, and kind of what he has to tell the world about how it is to be on one side of death, being the doctor, and then being on the other side as the patient. And I've already read this book, and if you cannot tell, absolutely loved it. This is definitely one of my favorite books of all time. The next book I have is Salt to Sea by Ruta Sepetys, or I think that's wrong, but that's all I know how to say her name. I forget the way you're supposed to say it. Ruta Sepetys? I don't know. I probably should have looked these up before, making this video. And this follows this ship during World War II that's supposed to promise people these freedom and all that stuff, and then tragedy strikes, and I think there's kind of like this romance in there, something like that. Obviously, I don't know too much about this book, but I'm really excited to get into it because I've heard so many good things about it, and I really want to get into more historical fiction. Next book I have is The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. This book is about this girl who's a journalist, and she gets to go on this luxury cruise ship. Everything seems well and fine until one woman goes mysteriously overboard, I believe, and it kind of takes off from there. It's supposed to be kind of a mystery psychological thriller, and I think my mom really enjoyed it, so I definitely want to read this too. I have another psychological thriller, and this is All the Missing Girls by Megan Miranda, and this follows this town and this girl who kind of goes away for a while and something happens to her dad, I believe. And while she was there, I think one of her best friends went missing, and when she comes back, another girl goes missing, and it kind of takes off from there, like what the heck is going on in this town. And so yeah, that's all I really know about it, and I think the less you know in psychological thrillers, the better. The next book I have is another historical fiction, and this is Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi. I've heard awesome things about this book as well, and I think it was on many people's favorites lists of 2016, and so with me trying to get into more historical fiction, I definitely wanted to pick this one up. I think it follows two sisters who don't know each other, and one gets to go with this rich white man and the other one gets put into slavery, and it follows their story and the generations after them, and we kind of travel with them throughout time to see where they land up. And I think it sounds really fascinating, and I've never read a book that was told like that. I think each chapter is like a different generation following these two sisters, so I'm really excited to read this one. The next book I have is another historical fiction, and this is The Nightingale by Kristin Hannah. I literally have no idea what it's about. I think it's a romance, and it is set in World War II. So the next book is another historical fiction, and it is All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. And I think these follow two separate people again in World War II. I think one's grows up in Germany, the other one grows up in Paris or something like that. That's literally all I know about this book. Obviously, it won the Pulitzer Prize. There has to be some type of literary merit to this book, and I'm really excited to read this, but that's literally all I know about this book. Sorry. So going back to these crime kind of thriller books, we have Night Film by Marisha Pessl. I've heard a lot of good things about this on BookTube again, and I think this follows some type of murder happening, and this guy's trying to solve it, even though it's ruled as a suicide. And so, yeah, again, that's all I know. Next, stepping back into classics, we have Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. I've never read this one before, and I think it's about kind of explores censorship, and I think it's in this society where they burn books, hence Fahrenheit 451, where like pages catch on fire. It definitely kind of gives me some like 1984 vibes, so I'll see when I pick it up if I will enjoy it as much as 1984. Next book is another classic, and a lot of people had to read this for school, but for some reason I didn't. Like, I didn't even get assigned it, and it is The Lord of the Flies by William Golding. A plane crashes on a deserted island, and the only survivors are a group of schoolboys. Their survival instincts kind of kick in, and they kind of become savage and murderous and all that stuff, so I think that sounds really cool. Hopefully I really enjoy it. So yeah, another classic on my TBR. The next book I have, I also don't know that much about, and it's Everything I Never Told You by Khaleesi Ng. I think it follows this family who their daughter is dead, but they don't know that yet. Explore the before and after, I think, of this tragedy, and I think this is really focused on family. So the next book I have is Big Little Lies by Liane Moriarty, and I'm not sure what this book is about. I think it's another kind of murder mystery, family drama, kind of like wife-husband drama, and a lot of people really enjoyed this book, so I'm definitely excited to get to this one. I have another Liane Moriarty book, The Husband's Secret, and this has always kind of had my eye. It's been out for a couple of years now, but I finally got my hands on it. It's about this husband who writes all his secrets down on this letter, and his wife isn't supposed to read it until he has passed away, but she stumbles upon this letter while he is still very much alive, and she reads it. I think this is going to be awesome, and I definitely plan on bringing it to the beach because I feel like it's going to be a really good beachy read, even though it probably doesn't take place during the summertime or anything. Mystery thrillers, I feel like, are good beach reads. Next book I have is going to be another really good beach read because it is a light contemporary contemporary, and it is Can You Keep a Secret by Sophie Kinsella. I think it's about this woman who goes on this plane ride and she's terrified and she's sitting next to this man, and so to kind of like calm her nerves or something, she just, because she's afraid of like dying or something like that, she like kind of tells him all her deepest, darkest secret. And she goes back to work. It turns out that he is her boss. So now her boss knows like all these secrets. Sounds like a perfect beach read to me. So I decided to take a big step into your epic high fantasy with A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. I have never watched the series on TV before, and obviously I've never read the books, so I am fresh and new to this, and I have had my eye on this book for a while, and now that I feel comfortable in the fantasy genre, I definitely feel like I can step into this book, you know, feeling somewhat prepared. Next, I have another fantasy book here. It is called The Crown Games by Evelyn Skye. This book is about this competition to become the Tsar's advisor, respected advisor, and so it's a battle to the death with magic and all that stuff. I've heard some mixed reviews about this book, some good, some bad, some eh. So I want to know where I fall on that spectrum, and I will remain optimistic because it sounds pretty cool. So we will see. Next book I have is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, and this is a adult contemporary book about, I think, just these two people that hate each other, and then what do you think is going to happen? I don't know, maybe they will like each other. Next book I have is another adult kind of like classic contemporary, P.S. I Love You by Cecilia Ahern. I have not seen the movie, and I'm kind of glad because I hear the movie is very different than the book, or vice versa. I feel like it's going to be a tearjerker because her husband passes away and he leaves her all these letters, and I just feel like I'm just going to cry throughout the whole thing. The next book or bind up of books that I got is The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. I just recently read The Hobbit and really enjoyed it, so I decided, since I'm getting into higher fantasy, to take a stab at the classic high fantasy series that is The Lord of the Rings. The next book I have is Gathering Darkness by Morgan Rose. This is the third book in the Fallen Kingdom series. You've got your rebels, you got your princes and princesses and kings, you got your kind of like lower life people, you got some magical witches thrown in there, you got some magic wielders of the elements. Like, if you want to get into fantasy and if you haven't picked up this series, I definitely say go for it. Next book is another highly raved about book, and it is The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. All I've heard is great rave reviews about this book. This guy kind of stumbles across this bookstore where he picks up a book by this author and really enjoys it, and he wants to like hunt down the author and all his other works, but they don't exist kind of deal. And so it's kind of like his journey trying to figure out what happened to all these books and this author and all that stuff, and that's really all I know about this book. So also lately I have been getting into more nonfiction, especially memoirs. So one of the ones that I recently picked up is The Glass Castle, but this is going to become a movie. It pushes it up on my TBR. I definitely want to read it before the movie comes out. And so since their family is so dysfunctional, they kind of have to take care of themselves, and that's really all I know. Next, I have the two memoirs that Mindy Kaling has come out with. Is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me and Other Concerns, and Why Not Me? And it is really funny, and she just tells random stories in her life and kind of some life lessons that she's learned through growing up. And in this one she talks about The Office, which I like The Office a lot. So yeah, I think she's pretty cool. So next I have another memoir, and it is Wild by Shirley Strayed, and this follows her going on this adventure and hiking the Pacific Crest Trail all by herself. We're getting down to the wire. We have 3 more books left. I'm happy, if you are still here, that you've stayed with me through this journey, because it's a long one. Next I have another memoir, and it is Brain on Fire by Susan Cahalan. This is about this woman, of course, who all of a sudden starts going through these psychological changes where she starts hallucinating, her personality changes, where she becomes paranoid and like she can't focus and work anymore, and then she starts to have these seizures, and her life just starts to take a downhill turn, and the doctors have no idea what's going on with her. Next we have Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. This is another kind of psychological thriller mystery kind of book, and this follows this girl who comes back to her town because recently a girl has been murdered, and her boss is kind of like, hey, aren't you from that town? Go down there and figure it out. And even though she has this dark history kind of with that town, she suffers from mental illnesses and all that stuff, and so she kind of is nervous but determined to be brave. And the last book, I literally have no idea what it is about, but it is another Ruth Ware book, and it is In the Dark, Dark Wood. This is another psychological thriller, and that is all I know about this book. People say, like, be prepared to be scared. So, I'm prepared. Alright, so that is all 30 plus books that I've gotten over the years, weeks, recently, not so recent. So yeah, let me know if you've read any of these books and we can talk about them. No spoilers though, please. I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye!